What if I told you there's a cuisine in Southeast Asia where you can eat dim sum or Chinese noodles for breakfast, an Indian spice curry for lunch, and a dish that blends both with Malay herbs, Portuguese influence, and 1,000 years of trade history underneath it all for dinner? That country is Malaysia. And if you haven't been talking about Malaysian food, you're missing one of the greatest food stories on the planet. Welcome to Heritage Food Stories Season 2, Episode 2, Malaysia, where all of Asia meets on a plate. And today we're diving deep into how Malaysia became the most diverse country in Asia. I'm your host, Chef Mireille, chef, food historian, and culinary storyteller with a lifelong passion for exploring global cuisines with you and the stories behind the food we eat. Before we get into today's episode, can you do me a favor? Hit that like button and let's start a conversation in the comments. My introduction to Malaysian cuisine happened entirely by accident. I was walking through Chinatown one day with my mom trying to find a restaurant that could satisfy my very picky mother. Not an easy feat, I assure you. Since part of my family is Indonesian, we saw shrimp paste on the menu and knew we would love it, and we were right. The cuisine instantly became a hit with my family, and I began spreading my love of Malaysian cuisine to everyone I knew, describing it as a fusion of Indian and Chinese cuisines, and sending any and everyone I knew to go visit Nyonya. But the more I dug into Malaysian food history, the more I realized that calling it a fusion of Indian and Chinese food was like calling jazz a fusion of piano and trumpet. Technically true, incredibly incomplete. 20 years ago, everyone was talking about Thai food, and no one was talking about Malaysian food. I found that to be a great injustice, and it became one of the reasons I started developing my own traditional Malaysian recipes. Malaysian fish curry, satay, chicken curry puffs, puteri ayu, and laksa. You can find all of these recipes linked in the show notes on my website at globalkitchentravels.com. Then in 2016, I traveled to Malaysia. I stayed in Penang, the culinary capital of the country, and arguably one of the greatest food cities in the world. I took a cooking class with Nazlina, who is still running her market tours and cooking classes in Penang, and my love for everything Malaysian was permanently sealed. I also visited Thailand and Singapore on that trip. What impressed me most, especially about Malaysia and Singapore, was the vast diversity of cultures and cuisines coexisting in the same place. Not just side by side, but woven into each other so deeply that you can taste centuries of history in a single bowl. Now, Malaysia sits at the heart of Southeast Asia. This archipelago nation sits on the Malay Peninsula just southward from mainland Asia, also including the states of Sabah and Sarawak on the island of Borneo. Geographically, it was always destined to become a crossroads. The Strait of Malacca, which runs along its western coast, is one of the most strategically important waterways in the world, a trade route between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. For more than 1,000 years, every ship moving between India, China, Arabia, and Europe passed through it. Where ships go, people follow, and where people go, food follows. This is the origin story of Malaysian cuisine. Not a single tradition, but a living record of every civilization that has passed through, traded, settled, and intermarried on this peninsula for over 2,000 years. When you eat Malaysian food, you are tasting the Indian Ocean trade routes, the Chinese Ming Dynasty, Arab merchants, Portuguese colonizers, British colonial labor policies, and the ingenious creativity of the people who took all of those ingredients and made something entirely their own. So, how did all this start? What made people travel oceans to get to modern day Malaysia? During different waves of migration, people arrived in the Malay Peninsula from present day India dating back to the 3rd century and China back to the 1st century, specifically on the island of Borneo. With these migration patterns, several religions and unique cultures took root in Malaysia, including Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma, Buddhism, and Islam. Between the 3rd and 13th centuries, as many as 30 Malay kingdoms rose and fell across the peninsula, with the three most powerful being the Khmer Empire, the Siamese Kingdom, and the Chola Empire, an Indian dynasty from Tamil Nadu that extended its reach across the Bay of Bengal into Southeast Asia. Each of these powers brought their language, religion, and food traditions with them. The pivotal moment in Malaysian history came in the 15th century with the rise of the Malacca Sultanate, the trading empire that would put the peninsula on the map of the world. At its height, Malacca attracted an estimated 15,000 merchants annually from China, India, Persia, Arabia, Java, and beyond. It was Arab and Indian traders who brought Islam to the peninsula during the 13th and 14th centuries, and by the 15th century, Sunni Islam had become the defining faith of the Malay world. It was also during this period that the term Malay became a cultural and religious identifier, referring to those who spoke the Malay language and practiced Islam regardless of their ethnic origins. Think about what this means for the food. In a single port city, you had Muslim Malay cooks, Hindu Tamil traders, Buddhist Chinese merchants, and Javanese spice traders, all eating together and apart, adapting to each other's practices, borrowing ingredients, modifying techniques. The food of Malaysia didn't just absorb outside influences, it was built from them. Now let's get into the colonial era. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to arrive, seizing Malacca in 1511. The Dutch followed, and eventually the British established dominance over the peninsula. Three European colonial powers, each with their own culinary traditions, each carving out their own influence on the food and culture of the region. Crucially, it was the British colonial economy that dramatically reshaped the demographics of Malaysia. To work the rubber plantations and build the railways, the British imported enormous numbers of laborers from India, primarily Tamil workers from South India, and China, primarily Hokkien-speaking people from the Fujian province. These weren't visitors. They stayed, they built communities, they cooked their food, adapted it to local ingredients, and eventually created entirely new culinary traditions that are now inseparable from Malaysian identity. The Japanese invasion of World War II would end the reign of the British in the Malay region. Decades of upheaval would lead to an independent Malaysia, forming on September 19th. The Japanese invasion of World War II would end the reign of the British in the Malay region. Decades of upheaval would lead to an independent Malaysia forming on September 16th, 1963. Singapore would separate and become an independent nation in August 1969. Two countries, one shared history, one shared food story with fascinating regional variations that continue to this day. Now let's just see how many cultural influences and ethnicities coexist in Malaysia today. The Malays are Malaysia's largest ethnic group. Their cuisine is built on a foundation of rice, coconut milk, and spices. The sacred ingredient is belacan, a fermented shrimp paste that forms the base of sambal and countless other dishes. It's pungent, it's funky, yet absolutely transformative. Once you've cooked with it, you'll understand why it's been a culinary cornerstone ingredient across Southeast Asia for centuries. Malay food also reflects the Islamic dietary traditions of no pork with an emphasis on halal preparation. The ever-present coconut milk provides the richness that lard might give in other Asian cuisines, but in a form that works across religious communities. Nasi lemak, rice cooked in coconut milk and pandan leaves, served with sambal, fried anchovies, cucumber and egg, is the national dish of Malaysia. It started as a field worker's breakfast, wrapped in banana leaves. Today, it's eaten at every hour of the day and by every ethnic community in Malaysia. Malaysian Chinese. Chinese communities have been present in Malaysia for centuries, but arrived in large numbers during the 19th century under British colonial rule. Most came from Hokkien-speaking Fujian province, though Cantonese, Teochew, Hakka, and Hainanese communities all established themselves as well. Each brought their own distinct regional culinary traditions. The Hainanese, for example, gave Malaysia Hainanese chicken rice, one of Singapore's national dishes, a simple, precise preparation of poached chicken and fragrant rice that has become a reference dish across Southeast Asia. The Hokkien community also gave the region char kway teow, a stir-fried flat rice noodle dish cooked over ferocious heat that provides a smoky, caramelized depth of flavor called wok hei. The Chinese community also established the kopitiam, the traditional coffee shop that remains one of the great social institutions of Malaysia and Singapore. The word comes from kopi, coffee in Malay and Hokkien, and tiam, shop in Hokkien and Hakka. These are the places where nasi lemak, toast with kaya jam, and strong pulled coffee have been served for over a century. The kopitiam is where all of Malaysia's culinary cultures literally sit at the same table. Malaysian Indians are of Tamil descent. Brought to the peninsula by the British to work rubber plantations and railways in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Their culinary contributions to Malaysia are immeasurable. They brought vegetarian South Indian temple cooking to Malaysia, rice and legume based, intensely flavored with spices and tamarind. Roti canai, one of the most iconic Malaysian dishes, came from these Tamils, a flaky layered flatbread of Indian origin that is now eaten by every Malaysian, regardless of ethnicity, dipped in dal or curry and regarded as a national comfort food. They also brought banana leaf dining, the practice of serving meals on banana leaves that connects directly to the indigenous food traditions of Tamil Nadu. Hindu festivals like Thaipusam, Onam, and Diwali are widely celebrated in Malaysia today, and the food traditions surrounding these festivals, from the elaborate rice dishes of Onam to the sweets of Diwali, have become part of the wider Malaysian cuisine. The indigenous people. Malaysia is also home to indigenous communities who are often overlooked in discussions of Malaysian cuisine, but whose food traditions are some of the oldest on the peninsula. In peninsular Malaysia, the Orang Asli are the indigenous inhabitants, with food traditions rooted in forest foraging, river fishing, and wild ingredients that predate agriculture on the peninsula. In East Malaysia, on the island of Borneo, the Iban and the Kadasan peoples have their own languages, longhouse communities, and culinary traditions, featuring wild boar, river fish, tuak, which is a rice wine, and forest vegetables that are uniquely distinct to Borneo. These traditions are an important and often underrepresented part of Malaysian food heritage. If you ever have the opportunity to visit Malaysia, seek out a longhouse cultural experience. They offer immersive stays where you can experience this food culture firsthand. Now we arrive at what I consider the most extraordinary culinary story in all of Malaysian food history, the Nyonya Peranakan. The Peranakans are the descendants of Chinese traders, primarily Hokkien men, who settled along the Malay Peninsula centuries ago and married local Malay women. Peranakan refers to locally born in Malay. The men were called Baba, the women who were the keepers of the cuisine were called Nyonya. This community developed an entirely new culture, a unique style of dress, intricate wedding customs spanning multiple days, a distinctive language blending Malay, Hokkien, and English, and most famously, a cuisine that stands out as one of the greatest examples of cultural fusion in culinary history. Nyonya cuisine takes Chinese cooking techniques, the stir fry, the braise, the balance of sweet, salty, sour, and marries them with Malay spices, aromatics, and ingredients. The foundation is the rempa, an aromatic spice paste that is pounded by hand with mortar and pestle, often for an hour or more, combining galangal, lemongrass, shallots, candle nuts, dried shrimp paste, kaffir, makrut lime leaves, and turmeric into a paste so complex and fragrant it perfumes an entire kitchen. This labor-intensive foundation is what distinguishes Nyonya cooking from anything else in the world. Indian spices also have worked their way into Nyonya curry paste, reflecting centuries of proximity to Tamil traders. Portuguese influence with the use of vinegar and mustard also are evident in dishes like feng, a fiery curry that dates back to the colonial era. Two of the most iconic dishes that represent Nyonya cuisine are laksa and capitan. Laksa is a spiced noodle soup that has been called the perfect metaphor for Malaysia itself. There are dozens of regional variations in Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. Some are sour and acidic, like Penang Assam laksa, with its assertive tamarind-based fish broth that reflects the region's fishing culture and Malay heritage. Then there is Nyonya Laksa Lemak, a rich coconut curry broth, deeply spiced and warming, with an umami balance of flavors that embodies the Chinese-Malay fusion at the heart of Peranakan cooking. Every bowl tells you exactly where you are and who made it. You can try my laksa with shrimp and water spinach on my website at globalkitchentravels.com. The links will be in the show notes. Capitan. Although part of Peranakan cuisine dates back to when the Portuguese were present in the 15th century. Capitan, a derivative of the word captain, was introduced by the Portuguese when they conquered Malacca in the early 16th century. A representative from each ethnic group was assigned capitan to act as community leader. The practice continued under Dutch and then under British rule. Capitan is a thick, spicy, rich coconut-based curry infused with lemongrass, kaffir lime leaves, and balachan to yield a smoky and aromatic curry. The cuisine of Malaysia is not one thing. It is many things existing simultaneously, sometimes even in the same dish. Here are some of the most iconic Malaysian dishes you will want to try. Nasi lemak, the national dish, rice cooked in coconut milk and pandan, served with sambal, fried anchovies, cucumber, and hard-boiled egg. Originally a paddy-field breakfast wrapped in banana leaf, now Malay's most democratic meal eaten by everyone, everywhere, at any hour. Laksa, the fusion dish that defines a nation. Every region, every community has its own version. Every version tells a story. Char kway teow, flat rice noodles, wok fried over extreme heat with soy sauce, chili, Chinese lapchung sausage, egg, and bean sprouts. Pure Chinese Malaysian street food inseparable from hawker culture. Mi goreng, fried noodles with Indian Malay flavoring, a dish that crosses every ethnic line. Roti canai, the South Indian flatbread that became Malaysia's universal comfort food, served with curry, dal, or sambal from dawn until well past midnight. Chicken capitan, a nyonya chicken curry that layers Malay spices, Chinese technique, and Indian influence into one pot, one of the greatest curries of the world. Malaysian style satay, skewered marinated meat grilled over charcoal with a spiced peanut sauce, but very different from the Thai version you might be used to, found across Southeast Asia, but with a distinctly Malaysian regional variation. There are a few more Malaysian recipes that you can find on my website. They'll also be linked in the show notes, like Malaysian fish curry, Malaysian pumpkin curry, puteri ayu, chicken curry puffs, and more. Now, here is what strikes me most about Malaysian cuisine, having spent years cooking it, researching it, and falling deeper in love with it. It was never supposed to work. Think about what you're asking. Take Chinese Buddhist cooking techniques and Malay Muslim spice traditions. Add Tamil Hindu temple flavors, Indonesian Javanese influences, Portuguese colonial vinegar notes, and the ancient food wisdom of Borneo's indigenous peoples. Put them all on a tiny peninsula at the bottom of Asia and see what happens. What happened is nasi lemak. What happened is laksa. What happened is Nyonya food, one of the most deeply flavored, culturally layered cuisines in the world, born from women who learned to cook from both their Chinese fathers and their Malay mothers, and made something neither culture had seen before. What happened is a country where the morning kopitiam serves roti canai alongside Hokkien noodle soup, alongside nasi lemak, and every person at every table considers all of it home. During AAPI Heritage Month, we celebrate the extraordinary diversity of Asian cultures and their contributions to our world. Malaysia is the living proof that diversity doesn't diminish a culture, it multiplies it, it enriches it. Every community that arrived brought something unique and irreplaceable, and the food is the evidence. When you eat a bowl of Nyonya Laksa or a plate of char kway teow or a parcel of banana leaf wrapped nasi lemak, you're not just eating a meal. You're eating 2,000 years of human movement, adaptation, and creativity. These are the food stories I will never stop telling. If this episode moved you, share it with someone who's never tried Malaysian food and then take them out for some laksa. Find recipes and resources in the show notes and subscribe to Heritage Food Stories on Substack for deeper dives and exclusive recipes. Thank you for joining me for Heritage Food Stories this week. See you in the next episode.